Yeah, we've just seen an update from the Bureau of Meteorology on the track for Tropical Cyclone Alfred, so I thought we'd better talk to them. And Angus Hines, Senior Meteorologist at the Bureau, is there at the headquarters in Melbourne for us this morning. G'day, Angus. I know it's been a long night for you. Can you take us through what we've seen overnight?
Yeah, morning Nate, morning everyone. What we've seen overnight is that Tropical Cyclone Alfred has again been very slow moving off the east coast, really just stuck in the mud, and through the course of the whole night it's only moved about 20 kilometres or so closer to the country. That's only really about walking speed, which is quite strange to think about for such a big and powerful system, and the winds of course are much stronger than that. But the system as a whole has been gradually moving towards the country, but not very quickly at all. But what we have seen is a continuation of those earlier weather impacts which have been forecast to and have arrived a long time before Alfred itself does make landfall. So we've seen some very strong winds across parts of the Gold Coast, parts of the Northern Rivers area in New South Wales, the mid-north coast as well. The strongest gusts have been up at around 110 kilometres an hour overnight, and we're expecting those numbers actually to tick up a little bit higher through the course of the day today. We've seen fairly persistent rain, although the rain overnight last night wasn't especially heavy at any one time. It was more like continuous moderate rainfall, which has given us between 60 and 80 millimetres in some areas through the night. That wet weather of course on top of the rain from the other night as well, so a continuation of flooding, and there is some major flood warnings in place. About 8 rivers or so through northeastern New South Wales have got major flood warnings, as well as the Logan River across the state border in Queensland, so those river levels starting to rise there at the moment. And finally, just a continuation of the very destructive conditions we've been seeing over the ocean, over the coastal waters, damaging powerful waves continuing to erode beaches, and some localised flooding of low-lying coastal spots.
Yeah, the pictures of the coast we've seen, just so much sand lost, so much damage there. And with the major flooding, I know the Wilsons River, Lismore, concerned about that flooding later today. This slowing down of the system, why is it slowing down so much, and what effect is that going to have on this part of the country?
Yeah, look, it's a really tricky one. Tropical cyclones are very fickle when it comes to how they move and how they get pushed around. That small shift in the atmosphere, a subtle shift in surrounding weather patterns, can actually be a big shift in either the direction or the speed that a tropical cyclone moves at. And of course, the speed is very important because that's ultimately what determines when it will arrive at the country here. So what we've seen basically is the big high to the south maybe hasn't quite taken hold as strongly as we thought it could. So the movement has been slowed down, and what that really means is the whole weather event is just going to get dragged out that little bit longer. It's just going to be prolonged. That means the wind, the rain, the coastal hazards and impacts are going to last that little bit longer before we can start to get over the hump and start talking about the system moving away and clearing. That's still a long way away. We are still on the ramp up. The weather is getting worse as tropical cyclone approaches. It is forecast to cross the coast and probably bring its most intense weather conditions through early on Saturday morning. So we're no longer really looking at Friday as a crossing, maybe overnight tonight into Saturday morning, or even throughout Saturday morning by the time it does work its way onto the Queensland coast. And that's when we'll see the strongest, most destructive winds and probably the heaviest, most intense rainfall, which can lead to very significant flooding of our rivers, as well as just significant flash flooding.